So today I'm going to talk about the localization in Flutter. So when talking about localization, there will be a few aspects of localization. For example, the language, the culture is basically translating your app, your Flutter app into another language, another culture to attract more customers, more users for your app. So normally there will be 5 questions. First one, who is the target audience for localization? What to be taken care of when implementing localization? Where to find all the resources? When is a good time to start localizations? And why should we care of localization at all? Well, for the who, obviously people are from different cultures, and so language is not the only language. English is not the only language, even though most of the developers will speak English very well, but other users they don't. So by providing your application to different languages, you are able to tap to a wider range of audience and customers. That's what the business wants. What to be what to be taken care of when you implement localization? I will have to say that the first thing is the language. That's the easiest way to translate your app into another, to tap into another new set of audience. But the language itself also contain of the grammar of the each language. So for example, in Japanese, when you say someone has something is different from in English, you say the same thing. So the orders of the word will be different. And the culture as well. Sometimes if you make a joke in one language, it means something else in the other language. Well, it may not be related to the app development, but that is what you will need to worry when you look at localization. I introduce over here some of the resources I use when I research for localization in Flutter. And the screenshot I'm showing over here is from flutter.dev, and they have one full session on the internationalize the app. So you can go to flutter.dev and search for localization, and you find all the information from there. Apart from that, in medium.com and pro Android dev, there are a lot of articles explaining all the aspect of localization as well. You can get yourself being equipped in this. And when should you start implementing localization? My answer is as soon as possible. If your project is a greenfield project, you should plan for localization as the moment that you start your project, the moment that you start planning for the project. But if the project is not a greenfield project and the business requirement come anytime, do it at that time. Start it as soon as possible. There's for Flutter, most of the Flutter developer I met make a mistake that they use hard coded string in the project, and it make them very hard to identify which strings are in English to replace it. And so my advice is do not do that. Separate your string into a different file and use reference to the string instead. And why should we care of localization at all? Hi. Why do you ask me this question? I really have to ask that because English is not the only language. So the more people you can meet by providing more languages is the more customer you can get for the business. And so, well, that's what the business want. Now, to implement localization in Flutter, luckily we have a plugin from IntelliJ that is available from Android Studio and also VS Code. So you can just install this plugin in your IDE and oh, it's good to go. Apart from that, you also can use ARB tools, but ARB tools is quite troublesome compared to the plugin. So within this talk, I'm going to talk about how you can set up the plugin and show you how it actually works. I'm going to use Android Studio as an example. So the Flutter International plugin is available on both Android Studio and Visual Studio Code. So the first step, of course, you will have to install the plugin. I'm using Mac, so in the MacBook, you can go to Android Studio Preference and Plugin, and and search for Flutter International and just install it. In Windows, there will be Android Studio files and settings for Windows. And after you install it, you may need to restart your Android Studio for the plugin to take effect. The second step is to open your Flutter app, the Flutter project that you want to enable international localization, and you go to Tools, select Flutter International, and click on Initialize the project. After this step, you will see that there are a few files generated automatically added into your project. So you can see that the default ARB file is created. This default ARB file is always English when you create it. The second one is the generated L10, and that is the localization .dat file. This file is where your actual class is defined, and the actual strings localization will be defined after will be generated after you make changes to your ARB file. And in the pubspec.yaml, you will find that Flutter internal is also added to your pubspec.yaml, but you will need to make changes to your pubspec.yaml file, because otherwise you can see on my screenshot over here, there are some errors because of the pubspec.yaml file is not being updated. So to resolve the error, you will need to add the international package into your pubspec.yaml. I will show it in my demo later. When you add your pubspec into your pubspec.yaml file, I really recommend you to change the class name, to define the class name, even though in the documentation, they say that the class name is optional and the default name is set to S. But I really recommend to change this class name to any project that you are referring to, because S, it just does not make sense to me. Finally, you will need to update your app, because you will need to declare localization into your material app. So if you are using material app, you will have to declare localization delegate to use the localization generated delegate, and then you have to define the supported locales using the delegate locales. And lastly, if you need to use only one language, you can skip this step. Otherwise, you can start adding all your locales in to your project. So when you add the locale, you will go to Tools, Flutter International, and Add Locale, and you will have to add using the language code. You will need the language code in order to add the new locale into your project. So I'm going to show you a demo using Android Studio. And the link over here is where I publish my localization demo project on my GitHub. You can have a look. So here is my application. Is the localization demo. As I say, in the pubspec.yaml, you will need to add your Flutter International package. Without this package, your localization will still get error, and that is the error when you first initialize the localization and you get error in the generated files. Secondly, also add the class name. This class name will make the generated file localization file to generate the class name that I want. Instead of just an S, it will generate the my app localization. Then I will use this name across all the strings in the project. Okay, so my first step is to create the strings in international English ARB file. So the first strings is a very simple string. It's just a string with text. On the UI, you will see it run only this. This is a simple string. So the text is just a string with nothing else. And the string is just a JSON string. For the ARB file is a JSON format. So you will have a key and a value. Corresponding to the English file, you will have also international file, ARB file in other languages, which is added when you add the Tools International and Add Locale. In each of the ARB file, you can translate it you can translate the string using the key and translate the value into the separate language. And when you run it on different language, you will see the same string will be shown in different languages. Okay. The beauty of ARB is that it uses the ICU format. So apart from just a simple string, this is the example. Here is the example of the string that receives 2 params in. So the number of params is up to you, but each of the params will be defined by the name that you first given to it. And the format is that it should be inside the curly bracket. Okay. So with this, during runtime, you can send the string in and it will update the string automatically. For example, over here, I will send my name in, and then I send my age in. When I click on it, it will show the strings in the Vietnamese language because this is running on the Vietnamese environment. Whereas in the English environment, when I enter my string, my name and my age, and I click, it will say hello to me in English. Okay, so over here I have 2 languages and the example show in 2 languages. And that is corresponding to the name and the age. This is when you open the international param in the generated file and you search for your key, it actually generates a string, a method return string, and it takes 2 objects, the name and the age. So when you use it in your code, you will use it like this. So the text will need to call the localization of context. You will need to send a context in, and it will, with the keyword, the method is the keyword in your string, and you need to send 2 params in corresponding to the name and the age. Okay. The next one is the string with selections. So localization will provide you with simple selection, is like switch case in your strings, but in in localization is called select. So the format for select is that it will always need to be inside a curly bracket, start and end in curly bracket. The first word before the comma is the key, is the param name, and the select is the keyword to let ICU know that this is a select format. And next, you will have to define your strings for, this is the key corresponding to the param that you send in. And so for example, over here, I send in a toy with, which can be a cars or dolls. And orders is a keyword. It means that if there's nothing, if you can't match with any of the key previously, use this phrase. So with this, the whole string here is a select. So when we translate it into other language, we only translate the mapping string. We do not translate the param name. We do not translate the key and other keyword. We only translate the text, the mapping text. And once we have this strings defined, it will be translated into the language.dat file, localization.dat file as a method which take in an object. And as you can see over here, it will translate it into a map from key to value. Okay. So normally I will use when I use with select, I normally use it with enum, because with enum the key will never change. So the example I have over here is that I create an enum of toys and of cars and dolls, and the cars are, the name of the enum's value exactly match the name of the key I use inside the select statement. And with this, when I display it in the text, I will just send the value of the toys, send the value of the enum in. One thing I have to say is that the order will also include the case when the object is null value. So you don't need to worry about null value in here. And with the selection, so for example, over here I have three options. So one is cars, one is doors, and one is orders. And in the English version, I have the same. And every time I click on one, they use the corresponding string phrase for that, and show on the screen. That is how this string selection work over here, and I don't need to worry too much about selection string for each of the toys. Lastly, another ICU format that is supported by this Flutter International plugin is that is called the plural. So as you all know, right, in English when we speak and we use the word, number one will come with a single, and more than one will be a plural word. So for example, if you say I have one dress, that will be just dress, and then I have multiple dresses, that will be dresses. So the grammar will be different, and for that, plural can be useful in one of that case, but it can be applied for all other cases as well. So over here, I use it as a counter with number 0. I say that you have not clicked the button yet. And when it's number 1, I say you have clicked the button one time without S. And then orders, meaning that 0 and 1 is already taken care of. Orders is any order number. It will show that you have clicked the button how many times, right? And with this, similar to the select, you only translate the mapping string. You do not translate all or any other keys, especially the param name, the keyword for plural, 0, 1, and order. And when you do a translation, here is the part that you will translate only the mapping string. So with this, when you use it in, I will show the localization first. When the file is generated, when the string is generated, it will generated as plural, and plural will define is as 0, 1, and orders. And if you check the plural, they actually have a few other keywords, and if you have any of these keywords in your string, they will be used to map into the strings and give it back to you during runtime. So when you use it, similarly, you have to send in a number. This is a number, and as we all know, number include integers, double, and also float. But if you send in a float, it will be treated as orders. So most of the time, you will have to send only numbers in here, float or double. Integer in here will be matched exactly into the plural map. But if you send double or float, you may always get the counter, the string from the order part. So here is how it looked like. Let's say I have the same app with two languages, Vietnamese and English. And the first one is the Vietnamese. I have not clicked the button anytime yet. So you will see this string. You have not clicked the button yet. Now I click the button one time. And this you have clicked the button one time will be translated automatically to the Vietnamese when your app is running in the Vietnamese environment. And key is when you click on the button more than 2 times, and you will get this. Okay. Now, with a little bit more complex, you can try to merge the strings between select and with param. So you can use your imagination and go wide with it. But the example I show over here is only to combine select with param. So you can define a select string, and then within the string, you can give the params to it. And when the generated file, that file is created, you can look at it this way. It will generate the complex file, the complex strings as method, and it will take the object toys, which is the param for the select, and it will take two other params, origin and name. If you don't want the params to be ordered like that, to be in that order, you can change it using the placeholder. There are a lot of fun of interesting stuff going on for this ICU format, so you can do your own research on it. I promise it's really fun. So let me show you how it looks like. This is a demo for the complex string, so I can enter my name here and I can enter my age here. And let's say I want to play with cars, then they will tell me that your name is Susie, you're 60 years old, and you love to play racing car. That's a very weird lady, but right, that's me. Or I can prefer to play dolls. So they say hi to me as your name is Susie, you are 60 years old, and you love to dress up dolls. I know. Okay, so I hope with all of this, it will actually give you motivation to try to translate your app into multiple languages and try to reach out to more wider range of audience for your app.
First question by David Tran. So how does it support unit test?
Well, to be honest, the support of unit test does not really work over here. And I believe that when the plugin is ready enabled, the unit test ready done on the plugin side. So the unit test on your app side will focus on your own logic, and it does not actually give any special support on the unit
Unit
test.
test.
Yeah.
So unit test is not, it's not possible in the testing side, but it's already implemented in the plugin.
Yes, that is my assumption because so far
Right.
until now I can't really do any logic test with the strings.
Right. So it's more towards like your own manual test to see whether the strings are correct.
Yes.
All right. Okay. All right. So next question by David Chan himself also. So does it support multiple files of the same language? Yeah. So he's asking because as the app grows, there might be thousands of keys and values.
Well, sadly, no. For each of the language, you will have only one file, unless
Right.
you can separate the file by. No, the separate is based on the region, but the language, no. So each of the region, you still have to keep the same pair of keys and value. If you don't keep the same pair of keys and value, if that pair of keys and value are missing in your language implementation, Flutter will use the default pair of language and a pair of key and value from your default files.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had some experience with the internalization or localization package. Yes, it is also one file and it's going to be huge if you have a
Yes.
lot of text. So, but luckily you have IDEs that has smart search. So there is no problem. But in terms of like having it clean code, it's not there yet, I would say. So hopefully maybe in the future, the Dart team or Flutter team has more support on multiple files.
Yeah,
Right.
that'd be
So
great.
that'll be great. I think that's about it. I myself don't have any questions, but I learned a lot about like the plurals and then like the other objects that you can use with the internalization package. That's like so cool because I didn't know you can put in like your own what do you call that, values, and then it will be translated on the fly, which is great.